So I would say my first songs were very influenced by those bands. And I remember bringing songs to my band. I had an all-girl band because I went to an all-girl Catholic school. And I remember bringing songs to them and they were like, oh man, this is too dark. This is way too dark. We've got to pep it up a little bit. I'm like, okay, whatever.
What's up, folks? Welcome to episode 81 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. On the episode is touring bassist and recording artist Eva Gardner. Eva has been an in-demand bassist for the past couple decades. All the way back in 2001, Eva was the original bassist for the band Mars Volta. She later went on to work with Tim Burgess, Veruca Salt, and joined the band for the artist Pink in 2007. And she is still working with Pink. Actually, we nudged this interview by one day because she had rehearsal with Pink. Eva has also released 2 EPs. The 2019 release was titled Chasing Ghosts, and the most recent release is titled Dark Matter. Eva holds a degree in ethnomusicology and comes from a musical family. Her father, Tim Garner, whose birth name was Chris Garner, was a founding member of the English 1960s rock group The Byrds. Originally, they were called the Thunderbirds. After he came to LA, he then founded the legendary establishment Cat and Fiddle. Eva will talk about all that. We also chat about quite a bit of other things too. There's a lot of humanity in this conversation, and that's ultimately my favorite. I highly recommend checking out her latest EP, Dark Matter. I really dug it. There's a lot of strong influences of grunge, some 80s synth, some glam elements. They're all working together in a really interesting way. Each influence is acknowledged, but none of them are overbearing. There's almost like this respect to each influence to let them coexist. And they do in a beautiful way. It's a fantastic EP, Dark Matter by Eva Gardner. I will have links to it at thebassshed.com/podcast/Eva Gardner. For all my musician friends out there that have their own single or album to sell, check out Finney. The fellows over at Finney.com have developed a new platform for artists to distribute their creative content. Finney.com benefits the creator of said content, and it is free to sign up and post your work. You can also listen to episode 76 of the Bass Shed podcast to hear from the owners themselves. So if you have an album, a single, anything you'd like to distribute, head over to Finney.com. Check it out. Double bassists. Everything you need for the double bass can be found at Lemur Music. Sheet music, bass accessories, basses, bows, bow cases, rosin, everything. Head over to lemurmusic.com. Use the promo code TheBassShed, all one word, for 10% off. While you are on the interwebs, stop by dlakenbasses.com. Dan Laken, founder of Lakeland Basses, has a new company, D Laken Basses. Dan and I designed a bass that I play a lot, actually. It is a 5-string fretless that I absolutely love. I mentioned how I took it out to a gig and folded pretty hard because I have it strung up with a high C string right now, and I wasn't that comfortable on the high C before I took it to a gig. Anyways, love the bass. Still working it out with the high C string. dlakenbasses.com. Getting back to my guest on the episode, this was a really fascinating and engaging talk with Eva Gardner. I remember after getting done with the chat, I was in a daze for a little bit, and I remember thinking, like, what just happened there? What just happened? I'm aware of some other interviews that Eva has done previously. And so I did quite a bit of research to prepare for our talk. I was hoping that I wouldn't cover too much of the same information in the same way. I was hoping to offer a different interview to her fans and to the bass community. I hope you all find it as interesting and captivating as I did. When I think back on all the different folks that have been on the podcast, this one will stand out for quite a long time. This was a lot of fun. So thank you, Eva. And here it is. Here's my chat with touring bassist and recording artist Eva Gardner. How you doing?
There we are. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Internet went down. That's still a thing, huh?
It's still a thing, and unfortunately, it's been a common thing in the last recently, yeah, I think I need to.
Is that because of your internet provider?
Yes, it is absolutely them. I get text message. It's Spectrum.
Oh, can we do a whole podcast rant about Spectrum? Can we just do that for an hour? Whatever. You play the bass, I play the bass. Fine, great. Okay, Spectrum. Whatever. Let's talk about just a bunch of a-holes over there at Spectrum. You have one job. You have the internet. Just deal with the internet.
Exactly. All right.
And
they send me text. They send me text message updates, and they're like, "Internet is out in your area. We will keep you posted with any updates." I'm like, "What the hell, man?"
Yeah. Drag.
Yeah. So anyway, here we are. We're back up and running.
Yeah.
Thank you, Spectrum.
Yeah. Well, let's see if this lasts. I mean, so far so good. Yeah. They don't have my vote on anything. They're terrible.
No, they're awful. And I would love to switch to another company, but there's no other company that offers internet in my neighborhood.
Right. They have like territorial monopolies on the thing. Like when I lived up in North Hollywood, it was Time Warner. And now that I'm on the west side, it's Spectrum, and they both suck.
You're in Venice, right?
I'm in Venice, yeah.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, Venice or Spectrum, because I can rant about either. I'm all about the rant. I love ranting.
Do you have some ranting to do about Venice?
Oh man, of course.
Some rantage?
Of course. When was the last time you were in Venice?
Probably last month.
Okay. You know it's rantable.
I know it's rantable. I did a bike ride with some friends, and it was full on tent city along the entire
boardwalk
bike path. Yeah.
Well, like the bike path that goes down Venice Boulevard by the library, or on the boardwalk?
A boardwalk.
Yeah.
Well, we went down to Santa Monica, so.
Okay.
Let me think.
There's less tents there. Like they keep it clean in Santa Monica. They don't keep it clean in Venice.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it was better in Santa Monica, but has it gotten better in Venice in the last couple months?
During the pandemic, like during lockdown, it got really bad. Then they came and cleaned it up, and now it's been slowly encroaching again. I don't know what to get in. I've heard
I live near downtown, so it's,
okay.
So it's pretty full on.
How's downtown doing? Like I haven't made it downtown. Oh, I was downtown maybe about a month and a half ago, but I don't know how close you are to downtown. What are they doing there? Is it clean? Echo Park, I know, got bad for a minute.
Echo Park got better. They cleaned up the lake. They put a fence around it.
Right. I heard about that.
But then it's like, where do they go? Right? Where do these people go?
Have you heard the tale that other cities ship them in?
No.
Yeah.
What is this tale you speak of?
What is this yarn you spin? I've heard that other cities like sometimes give them money to get on a bus, and it's a one-way ticket to LA, and they just ship their homeless over here.
Okay, I believe it.
That makes sense.
I believe it. I wouldn't put it past people.
No. I don't put anything past people. Yeah. Anybody is capable of doing just dumb shit.
Horrible things. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Just when you think you could trust somebody.
No, you can't.
When you thought people were innately good.
No.
Then, I was having this conversation with somebody, like, a while back, you're like, are people innately good or are people innately bad? And you're always the person that's like, oh, I feel like deep down innately people are good people. And in the last several years, people are like, I don't know, maybe they're bad. I don't know.
What's really your take? Tough. Where do you stand on the topic?
I always want to stay on the optimistic side of the fence.
Okay. Now I gotta ask, is that because it helps you get through the world easier? Because if you inherently think people are bad, then you're just depressed all the time.
Exactly. It's like a glass half full, glass half empty kind of a thing. And I want to live my life thinking the glass is half full, even when it appears to be half empty. But I feel like it makes life a little bit more palatable.
I think so. And I definitely agree with the law of attraction. And so if you're thinking half full, hopefully that inspires whatever kind of stuff, people
like
around
attracts
you,
like.
yeah, people around you are going to hopefully be more optimistic and less dark.
Yeah, I hope so. And I find that when people are the doom and gloom people that are around, it's difficult to be around doom and gloom.
Yeah.
All the time, even because there's enough doom and gloom.
And it takes a lot of effort to deal with them.
Yeah.
Like, geez, like now another one. Like I got to console you too. I've done it like 4 times today.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a lot.
It's exhausting.
It's a lot. So, yeah. And I think I get it from my mom. My mom's always been a very optimistic person. And she's always been like when bad things happen, she's always the person that's like, well, we'll she tries to see the good side of things. And she's always been like that. So I'm grateful that she's always been a positive force and optimistic force, because I think that that's a habit that I appreciate.
That's a great habit. And does she do it on the circumstances? Like, if someone's car got broken into, she would be, well, at least it wasn't this. This is easily fixable. We can have it done by the end of the week. Or is it just on the larger picture? Everything will be okay.
It's all the above.
Okay. Oh, wow. She's just always looking for a silver lining.
Yeah, because I feel like, again, it makes life a little bit more palatable and makes it easier to go through and to see those things, because the bad things happen all the time, right? That's just, there's no good without bad.
Exactly.
And so those things are going to happen. So, I appreciate maybe seeing things from a different angle to see, like, maybe down the line, we'll see why, like, you'll be glad later that you didn't get into that school or whatever, whatever the case may be.
The story, as the stories unfold, they reveal themselves.
Yeah.
But when you're in the process of the journey, it's just kind of like, well, what the hell is this?
Sometimes it's hard to see it's hard to see. It's hard to see the forest through the trees?
I think that's the thing. Yeah. Is
that the right thing?
I grew up in the desert. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Where did you grow up?
Phoenix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're LA, right? You're born here?
Born and raised.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
It's rare.
Yeah, we're a rare breed, but we're out there.
Yeah.
We exist. We exist.
Like some indigenous tribe that's like, oh, I think I saw one today.
Yeah. Well, even there, I was
spotting.
Even talking to you could choose your happiness can be a choice, right? And another conversation I was having with someone about growing up in LA and seeing how much LA has changed, and seeing, all the buildings that have been raised and other ones that have been built, and just how it's a really different landscape from how it was when we were growing up. And some good, some bad, sure. But I started finding myself being that person that was like, oh, well, back in my day, and when the old locksmith turned into a Rite Aid or whatever, and then you get mad about that. And now that Rite Aid is closed, and they tore that building down.
Now everything's a Chipotle.
Exactly. Yeah. But I feel like these people were having the same conversations 50 years ago, 100 years ago.
I think every generation has had it.
It's the same thing. So I had to keep myself from just turning into that curmudgeon-y person. I had to make a choice. And I was like, you know what? I just have to choose to see this as this is just the way things are. Yeah. Some people it's progress, to some people it's not progress, but it is what it is. And you can only choose the way that you react to it.
Agreed.
You can't control what's happening, just your attitude towards it. So
right. This whole conversation and that quote specifically leads me to your EP.
Oh,
because I was reading an interview you did with Glide magazine, and you actually used that same thing. You said that same thing, that you can choose how you respond. The title of your EP is Dark Matter, and reading the article answered the question I had written, but I would like you to explain it to the listeners who may not have checked out the article. Where does the title of the EP come from?
So I used to be, when I was a kid, before I wanted to be a bass player, I wanted to be an astronomer. And my dad had a telescope, and we were always looking at the stars and looking for planets and just really into space and what was out there. So I've always had an ear and an eye towards astronomy, and I love the concept of dark matter, which is an astronomical thing that where they say that you can't necessarily see this dark matter, but you know it's there because of the way that it's affecting matter around the things around it.
Would a black hole be part of that?
No, a black hole is not dark matter. A black hole is actually, I think it's actually a mass, but you can't see it because it's
a vacuum, isn't it? Like it's a mass that is a vacuum.
Yeah, like light can't
exist?
like can't reflect off it because it's just absorbing everything around it. I think the pull is so strong, so light can't escape.
Right.
That's why we can't see it. So it just looks like a black hole. But that is actually like things can orbit around a black hole.
Okay.
It's actually like mass.
Without getting sucked into it, huh?
They can, yes. If they get too close, they'll get sucked into it. But if they stay far enough away, things can actually orbit around it, from what I understand. So this idea of dark matter is really fascinating because I also am really into psychology and the way that the human brain works and our patterns and how our human brains have evolved from the ones that have survived, right? Like we're descendants of survivors. Mm-hmm. So that were the ones that were away to or around that could find food, that could run away from predators. Right. So we are wired like our ancestors. And so our brains are wired still for those times, although we don't have those same concerns and need for survival that we used to.
Right.
We
just
still
like a
have
carnal, instinctual, reactionary reflex system.
Yes, we still have the same hormones. We still emit the same hormones. We still have all the same functions, even though we don't use them in modern society the way we did before.
Sure.
So the subconscious is one of the things that I'm really fascinated in as well, and how our subconscious affects us. And to me, I kind of drew a parallel between the subconscious and dark matter. Like we don't see it, we don't know it's there, we're not aware of it, but it affects us. It affects our patterns. It creates our patterns. It's something that we carry with us, and we don't necessarily know that it's there or that it's determining our moods or our behaviors.
Sure. No, it makes, I think it, can change the course of things. Going through and like kind of marinating on the concept of that musically while putting out the EP, did you discover some spots in your subconscious that kind of came to the conscious? Yeah.
If you look at like relationship patterns, whether it be romantic or with your family or friends, patterns that arise from subconscious behaviors, from things that have happened throughout our lives and childhoods that have programmed us. We have these programs, whether it be I just learned recently, there's trauma with a big T and there's trauma with a little t. And most of us at least have with a little t. And those are those things that happen to us over and over again that pick away at us. Maybe it's like an overbearing parent or something at a teacher at school or whatever it may be. Those things that we don't necessarily see as a big event, which would be a trauma with a big T.
But our minds are registering it as trauma. And with the little t traumas, that was a question, actually. I don't want to. Our minds are recognizing these lowercase t traumas as trauma, even though to somebody else it may not be trauma.
Right, exactly.
Like that's a personal, unique, individual trauma for us.
Yes, and we all have our own experiences, and we all create these programs. But again, we're wired for survival.
Right.
We're wired to remember those negative things so that we stay out of the way, or don't eat that purple flower because it will kill you. It will kill you, or whatever. It's like the way that we're wired is we remember those bad things. We remember those things so that we don't repeat them, or we stay out of harm's way. We survival stuff.
To dig into the psychology, I would have no idea what it's called, but I do think that people purposely replay traumas because they find comfort there. Comfort in the sense of the trauma is not comfortable, but they're used to being in this place. So they kind of bring it on themselves.
It's familiar.
Yeah, that's what I'm going
Exactly.
for. Right.
Exactly. It's familiar. So we repeat those patterns because they're familiar, even though.
Because the pattern is just a habit of how someone conducts themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a habit, and it might not be serving us necessarily,
Sure.
but it's something that's familiar, and we keep repeating these patterns. We're like, oh my God, why do I keep, choosing, like emotional vampires? Why do I keep having this? But maybe your parent was one of your parents was one, or maybe someone that was in your early life was one. So it's a familiar thing, even though you're like, oh, why do I keep doing this?
Right. No, it's when I've come to crossroads like that in my personal life, and it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack. I mean,
I feel like it's a lot of work. I mean, it's easy. It's not easy. The journey is not easy. I mean, I've been in and out of therapy for the last 20 years, and I feel like I've been on this journey for a very long time towards just figuring out my own brain and figuring out why I do the things I do. And it's a pretty fascinating ride. It's not always pleasant.
No,
usually it's not actually pleasant at all, but
I think there is a daring to anybody who pursues that, because you're going to see some ugly stuff about yourself, and your image of yourself will probably change, and you might get dark and depressed for a while because of it if you stay there too long. But I think it takes a lot of courage to be able to go into it knowing that, like, this isn't going to be happy all the time.
This ain't pretty. This ain't so pretty all the time. No. Yeah. Not all hearts and rainbows.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a bunch of spectrum internet fails. Yeah. Is what it is.
Exactly.
It's tied together.
That's exactly right.
Cool. So that was the concept you were dealing with the record. And then out of the 6 tunes on the record, is there a personal narrative tied to each track, or are they kind of concepts that just fit the concept of Dark Manor? Or is it personal to you as well?
I mean, each song is its own little capsule and tells its own little story. And again, that's all coming from my own brain, whether it's experiences that I've had personally or things that have influenced me that I've seen. It's like storytelling, sure. And it kind of comes from all over. But at the end of the day, I think that being a human, you come with a subconscious, you come with a program, and you don't know really, you don't see the inner workings, but it's there.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's the overarching thing, and all those the stories within the record are all their own little
vignettes,
result of vignettes. Yeah, results of whatever programming,
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when did this attraction to psychology and maybe sociology, how far back can you trace that in your life? Because you got a degree in ethnomusicology, which I think all that is very tied together with the whole cultural level and clearly a music level. But sure. It's still a study of people almost first.
Yeah, so it's a cross between musicology and anthropology, actually, and it's a study of music and how it correlates to culture, how the environment influences people and therefore music, right? Yeah. And studying ethnomusicology and music around the world, you're really seeing how music is developed according to the environment that people are in. Like, Western music has its own very specific set of rules. But then you go over to, I got really into Indonesian music, into Balinese music specifically. And so if you examine Balinese music, it's right on the equator. The sun sets and rises 6 to 6 every day, year round. So harvest season is year round. So as a result, the music is very cyclical. Sure. And there's no necessarily beginning, middle, ending. Like, sure, there's like songs, quote unquote, song formats that we performed. But it's all based in cycles. And so just around the world, you're seeing how people's environments, specifically a lot of natural environment, if there's a lot of bird song or rainforest activity, a lot of times the music will mimic that and imitate the environment that people are in.
I'm fascinated by this. Balinese music, you said, is the cyclic. So harmonically in this music, are there cadence points with like a tension, and a resolution?
Sure.
Do they still have all that?
There's a lot of dynamics.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics for sure. And it's a lot of like the instrument that I played. It was called the pamade, and it looks like a xylophone. It's a xylophone type instrument. So there's a set of xylophone looking instruments. There's a set of like small potted gongs. There's a set of larger gongs that accent the different parts of the music. There's,
is it ceremonial based?
It can be.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sure. It can be. Yeah, it's a Hindu country. So a lot of it's based on the Ramayana.
Okay.
From what I understand. And so a lot of it's like stories that come from those traditions, and there are characters. There's dancers that are part of it. So a lot of these are characters from these stories.
Is this still like what it sounds like you're describing is something that's like really folkloric? Is it still exist in that application now, or have they modernized it in some way, or are they still carrying the tradition of that over there? Do you know?
From what I know, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been over there, but from what I know, they still carry on that tradition. Yeah, it's still the traditional music. I don't know what the current stuff is. I don't know. Like last time I was there, that was before there was really internet. It was before there was a lot. Like we didn't have cell phones, so. Wow.
That seems like a cool time to be there, though. Like before the technology gets in there and messes up, like the purity of it.
Sure. Yeah. And I went over there with my teacher. So my teacher who taught at UCLA also taught at Cal Arts.
Okay.
And Yoman Wenton is his name. And so when he said he was going back for the summer one day, he was like, and who wants to come? A bunch of us raised our hands. So it was UCLA kids and Cal Arts kids, and we all went over there. And it was great because we had him as we went with a local, basically.
Yeah.
So he was able to guide us, and we had a really incredible experience and got to perform in these different villages. And it was a really special experience.
Nice.
To be able to get that. But it was also one of those things where we didn't have cell phones. So the way that he gave us directions to places was like, okay, yes, so you go down to this village and then make a right at the big tree, and then you'll see a cow, and then make a left at the cow when you see the cow, and that's how we kind of got around.
I like that the landmarks aren't stationary things. Like the cow can move. Yeah, like oh man,
I know.
Do you still hang a left if the cow's like 400 yards down? That's hilarious.
Exactly, but that was also part of the charm, I think. Even though there was a lot of people that were late all the time, and you can't text them and be like, hey, I'll whatever, or you can't turn on your GPS and figure out where the cow is at any given moment.
Yeah, no one's got a low jack on the cow.
Exactly. So it was a really, looking back from a nostalgic perspective, it was a really special time.
Yeah.
And I would love to go back. I don't know what it's like now. I hear it's still amazing.
Sure.
But revisiting places that I went to many years ago before phones, and then revisiting later, where everyone has an iPhone, I would say it's pretty different experience.
Of course. What was I going to say? I had something lined up. I forgot it. You released this EP. Okay, I have to ask this because I don't understand this. This isn't specific to what you released. EP means extended play, as far as I know. LP means long play. Why does EP always mean short?
I think it has something to do with vinyl and the
that
amount.
Would make sense that the vinyl could hold.
Yeah, I think that if you, I don't remember.
Because to me, they seem like the same thing. You got extended and long. Well, then. One, what's normal?
Right.
If the LP's long and this one's extended.
Yeah.
And then why, when people do release EPs, they're always, like you did, 4 to 6 tunes. It's not necessarily a full length album. Huh.
It could have something to do with the speed at which they're played.
Could be the speed.
Because like for the vinyl is 45. You play at 45 RPMs, so you can only fit so many songs on there. I think, I don't know. I could be
the
wrong.
Vinyls you sell, are they 45s? Are they actually?
They are. Yeah, it's not the size of a 45, but it's a 12 inch. Yeah, it's a 12 inch vinyl, but it's played at 45 RPMs. So the quality, there's more information in there. So
is that what that is?
The quality is higher.
So if you spin slower, you get more information on the actual.
So it's higher quality.
Okay. I've just been getting into the vinyl thing. So this is all new territory for me.
Yeah.
This is your second EP, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was the first one?
The first one was called Chasing Ghosts.
That I want to talk about that. That also leads me to something I read, that you were on a ghost TV show in relation to Cat and the Fiddle.
Yes.
Okay. I definitely want to come back to that. I loved that club, by the way. I used to play there every Sunday night, like 8 years ago.
You did? Did you do jazz nights there?
Yeah, I was on a Sunday night.
Yeah, we did jazz Sundays.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, that's cool. What was the band that you were playing with?
It was just a bunch of dudes, like whoever was in town.
Okay.
No. There was a jazz thing before.
Was it the jazz thing, or was it were you doing the Latin when you guys brought in the?
We were doing like hip hop jazz.
Jazz. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But I remember hearing kind of a classic jazz thing there at one point.
We had a traditional jazz thing. We had the guys had been playing since like I was a kid. They played there for 20 years since the mid 80s. Actually, my dad would sit in every Sunday.
Oh, nice. Who's the manager guy? What was his name? I loved that manager guy.
Was he English or American?
He was English.
Andy.
Yeah. Andy, maybe that guy was great. And like there was always like these old timers that would sit in the same couches every
on the
week.
bench.
The dude with the straw hat. What was his name? He was a sweetheart.
Martin.
Yeah.
Irish.
Yeah. Love that guy. He decoded, there's a saxophone player that used to play with us sometimes. And he just decoded the whole dude in like one saxophone solo. He completely nailed who that guy was. It was really fascinating. I love that club. I actually didn't know that the original location is now Pache.
Yes, that's right. We were in Laurel Canyon.
Right. First. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Right next to was that creepy little Laurel Canyon store still then?
Oh, it was there. Yeah. I used to get candy from there.
That place has a vibe. That place weirds me out.
The Country Mart.
Yeah.
Store. Yeah. Store.
So back to the title, back to your first EP. It was called, remind me the title.
Chasing Ghosts.
Chasing Ghosts. What was the concept on this one?
Yeah. So that was, again, sort of talking about things that aren't there, but they're there. Now that I think of it. Yeah, just kind of like, I had lost my dad. So just sort of, but his presence is so strong, in my life. And of course, the Cat and Fiddle being one of those places where he like sat in with the jazz band every night. And he was the one who was like the host with the most. And so he definitely had a strong presence there. And again, the ghost, it's a lot of different layers, like my city, like Hollywood, me growing up in Hollywood. And it's like the ghost of old Hollywood is still there kind of, but it's like, it's different. Things have changed, but there is still, like I passed by the hospital that I was born in a lot, and, like the neighborhoods that I grew up in, there's still little elements of it. And then people, whether it be like people that aren't in your life anymore, whether it be relationships, like you driving around town and that's the restaurant that you and your ex-partner used to go to all the time. So it's just kind of, it's all these ghosts that are around, and you're just feeling their presence, and they don't ever really take form or take shape, but there's still a presence there. There's still memory.
There is. Yeah. How do you personally reconcile that with the past? Do you let it exist and just realize that it's part of your whole entirety? Like these people and places are always going to be a part of you. Do you think that there's a necessary, I don't know, time to confront it and maybe get rid of that? Because then you're holding on to a negativity that was attached to either the place or the person.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it's a struggle for me because I'm a very nostalgic person, and I really hold a lot onto the past, like whether it be, like where the Cat Fiddle used to be. We were there for 30 years, and then we had to move, unfortunately. So that is a very big thing. We're like, oh, we miss the old days, we miss the old stuff, and
I haven't been to it. I haven't been to the new one yet.
Yeah, so we're in a new place now. We're on Highland and Melrose, which used to be a club called Highland Grounds, actually, back in the day. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, change is the only constant, right? Sure. And sure, the past is the past, and it was great, and there's a lot of memories, and it was very magical. But we're making new memories now, and you appreciate the past, you learn from the past. But I think there's also an important. This is me telling myself this.
Okay. This is the self-talk.
There's also an importance to being in the present and appreciating the past for what it was, but keeping your head forward and looking to what's in front of you.
Yeah.
I think when we hold on to the past so much, it's hard for us to be present.
I agree. I think that there's maybe some relevance to staying in touch with it, though.
I think it's a balance.
Yeah.
I think it's a balance. And if it comes to experiences, the past is something that we can learn from, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we can appreciate the past for that.
So that was the first EP, is dealing with this idea. How is that portrayed musically on the first EP?
Well, I mean, a lot of it talks about, one of the songs is called Forever is Never. And it's about being in a relationship that was just not meant to be. And even maybe being in for a little bit too long, knowing that it's not going to go anywhere. And that relationship became a ghost of the past very, very quickly. That person became a ghost of the past quickly, but we were together for a long time. And so, of course, a lot of the, again, revisiting places that you went to together. And it's like, there's still a bit of a presence there, a ghost. I just would call it like a ghost of the past.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that there is, I was married for 9 years. I've been divorced. I don't know how long now. 5, 6, something. But that was a big chunk of time in my life. And so those things still, it's not that I haven't processed the divorce, but there's an element of it that will probably always be with me because of the amount of time you spend with someone and places you go and stories and life you accrue and all that stuff. Those things are always, I think, very much alive.
Yeah.
The healing, sure. Even going through the healing of the separation doesn't make those go away. And it's kind of cool sometimes, because it's all just a scrapbook that lives in our minds. So it can be detrimental, but it's also like that's all part of it.
Right. And they remain as memories. They live on as memories, and they'll never not be a part of your life because it happened.
Yeah.
You can't change the past.
It was there. Yeah, it definitely happened. Yeah.
It was there. It was there. But how it remains now in your mind is
I think that's
just
the important part
of what it was, or yeah. And if it was a negative experience, then hopefully that's something that you learn from and can appreciate for it being what it was, and something that appreciating that if it was negative, and appreciating that it's not in your life anymore.
Right. There's something to appreciate from, I think, every experience.
Yeah, I get to see that glass half full. Right?
Yeah, right.
Trying to see the trying to see those positive angles.
Are
as
those
best as you can?
Are those regular? Those kind of situations, and maybe reflecting on or grieving somebody or some place or something, is that a common source of inspiration for your writing?
I would say so. Yeah, I keep a running list of ideas. Like I'm usually creative when I'm in a good place. But if I'm feeling a certain way, I will just kind of word vomit I keep a running notes in my phone on my computer, and I'll just and then I can tap into that later on when I'm in a
do you reread?
creative place. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I used to do that, do like the mind dump, and like I'd keep a journal and just write and like just dump it all out as a way to purge it. But then I didn't want to ever revisit what I purged. So I don't want to put it back in. I want it just to get it out.
That's a good, that's a good tactic for sure for processing. But this is more of like, I will create, it's not necessarily a word dump or a journal entry, but it's just like a, maybe a titles or keywords like emotions or, describing an experience, describing how I'm feeling, describing, it's more like descriptive stuff. And it's just more, it's with the intention of going back later and making a song out of it.
Okay.
A lot of times I get stuff off of bumper stickers, or billboards, or out of a book, or
is there anything you recorded that has been pulled from a bumper sticker?
I feel like there is.
Really?
I feel like there is somewhere down there. There was, because sometimes there's just like little clever wordplay things or something. So sometimes those get thrown into the mix and they'll all be mishmashed up into song lyrics. Yeah.
The production on Dark Matter was really, really intriguing to me. One, I hear several different generations or decades, I guess is a better phrase, all happening simultaneously. I can hear 70s, obviously 80s and 90s, all happening at once. I think one of my favorite things about it, sonically and production wise, was how you approached mixing the vocals. Because it's not the standard issue vocal mix by any means. I appreciated that. Do you want to speak to that process?
Yeah, well, I did not mix this. This was mixed by someone out of Oklahoma, and Jared Evans, who ended up, he has a really great ear for kind of old school stuff anyway. His whole studio's full of analog gear, which I got to use some of. And
nice.
So I came to him with demos basically. And I recorded I took a music production course, and my songs ended up becoming like my homework to turn in mixes.
What did they? Oh, okay. So now I want to hit pause on Dark Matter and go off on a tangent. What did you learn in music production course? Was it songwriting? Was it how to navigate Pro Tools and reverbs? Was it about the producing the song as core material or producing it in a studio?
This was more about engineering. This was more about getting to know. I use Logic, so it was more about getting to know Logic better. Yeah. And when I would record in the past, my approach was I just want to demo stuff. I just want to get stuff in the machine. So I'm recording it and let someone else fix it all up and make it sound good later. Sure. So I switched that up a bit, and I was like, I want stuff to go in the machine at a good quality so I can use those tracks and not have to re-record later.
Yeah.
So that was my point. And so my homework was to turn in mixes and learning how to use plugins, learning how to make sure your input volume's it's not over, it's not peaking, things like just to get really good quality stuff going into the computer and so that can be used later. So, I ended up recording all these songs on my own. And did demos and recorded. I had just songs that I would turn in as mixes, and so I would tweak them and get the mixes better and better. And so they ended up becoming pretty good demos, I would say.
So now, what was the? If we call that, for the sake of this question, those were the scratches. You went into the studio. What was on the scratch? Vocal and some kind of chordal instrument, or did you have like a drum mock-up, some bass, everything?
Everything. I did everything fully produced. I programmed all the drums.
Okay.
That was a full song. All this stuff. So when I went to Jared, I had a drive just of the sessions and of all the stems.
Yeah.
So the things we did at his studio is we recorded live drums, and redid some lead vocals because he had really nice mics. Sure. So redid some of the lead vocals and then played with some of his analog gear.
Yeah.
Because I had those sounds anyway. I was leaning towards those sounds anyway, using the MIDI stuff. but he had the actual gear, so we got to
you
use
got
the
to
real
dig
stuff.
in.
Got to dig in.
Nice.
Yeah, and then he mixed it.
Okay,
he mixed it all. Yeah,
sounds great. Were you there for the mixing process?
I wasn't, but not in person. But we were going back and forth
with the recalls, or like, hey, I like that, but do this, that process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nice. Why 6 tunes and not on this last one? Why 6 tunes and not a full record?
Well, it was going to be 5 tunes.
Oh, okay. I'm not vibing you out because it's like 6 tunes short. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
If why that decision was made.
So the thing I like about my last one was an EP too. The thing I like about that is that it's more of a bite-sized project.
Yeah.
It's something that I know that I can actually finish in a more decent amount of time. It's just less cumbersome. And I have to like
think
set
about
myself,
and coordinate for sure.
Yeah. And I want to set myself up to win, and I want to set up to like finish stuff. So for me to do that, I felt like an EP was the most manageable option there. One day I would love to do a full record. And I would really dig that. But I just really like the way that an EP feels as far as it not being so daunting, because releasing something on your own is a very daunting project anyway.
I'm in the middle of it right now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of work, and
so much work,
especially when you're doing it all by yourself and you're funding the whole thing, you're paying for everything, you're putting in all the promotion, and you know how it is these days. We do it all. We're one-stop shop.
Right. Did you hire
ourselves?
Did you hire any kind of PR? I just finally spoke to someone about doing PR about when mine comes out. Did you do that yourself as well? Because I mean, you already have a presence on the scene, and I'm sure you have a bunch of contacts from all your road work and all the active tours.
I did have someone help with the PR because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And so it really helped with someone who had those contacts and was able to focus on that side of things.
Yeah.
So that was really, really helpful. That is the one thing that I did get help with that I'm glad I did. For sure.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Did you like having your hands in all of it? It's kind of fun. I mean, I still do. I have my hands in all of it. It's kind of fun, but it's super overwhelming. And I wish that the budget was big enough to be like, here's the paycheck and the stems. Like, just fix it.
There it is. Yeah, do it. Just
send
help
it
me
back
out.
when it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, I like having a hand in it because it's at the end of the day, it's my name on it, and I need to know that it's something that I'm proud of, and that I think that I want to be part of that process. Yeah, for sure.
Is production something you're interested in continuing to evolve in, not only for yourself but for other artists?
I'd be open to it for sure.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Did like specifically the engineering? I think I'd like the mixing. Engineering's not my.
Engineering's a lot, but
it's too techy.
It is, but I was actually in a session with a friend of mine, and interestingly enough, we were going to play. It was a writing session. We were going to both play the instruments, and for whatever reason, I just ended up engineering the whole thing.
Nice.
And it just that's just how it flowed,
Yeah.
The workflow happened, and I just said to her, "Hey, you play all the stuff. No, let's." Whatever. And between the two of us, it just seemed to flow way better with her just playing all the things and miking all the stuff. And then I just engineered it because I guess I was just fresh out of the course and was pretty quick at it. So,
okay. So you got into touring early on in your career. How did Mars Volta come around?
I knew Ike Owens.
Okay.
I knew him from around just playing around town, being in bands. And I also went to high school with his little brother, Brandon, who's also a bass player. So through that connection, Ike called me up and told me about these guys he was playing with and how they were looking to start a new band. And we set up a meeting.
So the band was already together or was not already together?
Not yet.
So you were on the ground floor of it all.
Yeah.
All right. That was exciting. Did you do any writing with them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we at the beginning, everyone was writing. We were all writing together. It was like a collaborative situation.
Nice. Did you have I don't want to say existential, but did you have the same approach to writing back then? Is that where your mind was at with music in those days? Is that what you were bringing to the writing sessions?
I was always writing. I mean, even in my first band when I was 14, I was writing songs.
Okay.
with them. So I've always been the kid sitting on my bedroom floor with an acoustic guitar, writing songs, kind of a thing.
Okay.
So
I've
always
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I've always had that tendency, and then later on playing in bands where we're all in a room together. Usually like drummer, guitar player, me. That's when I really got into like writing as a bass player, as part of a band.
Okay.
In that way, collaborative thing.
When writing as a bass player, do you start with the instrument first, like play a bass line, and that begins a process, or do you start with a melody or lyric and then figure it out? I'm assuming if it's like everybody else, every song is different. But is there some place you kind of start with in your process when you have a bass in your hands and you're writing?
Again, it varies. It can start with a bass riff. It can start with a drum beat. It can start with a guitar line. It just really kind of whoever throws something out there.
Right. Then you go with that. Do you prefer the cooperative writing experience, or do you like the solo experience?
I like all of it. I enjoy all of it. It's all just different sides of the coin.
I don't think I could ever write. That seems like that is such a unique. I don't know what word to choose. Like, it's a talent, but songwriters hone it too. So it's also a skill that's worked at. However you want to frame that, it's a unique, special thing. I don't have the talent or the time or the whatever. Like it's a tough thing. Who are some of your favorite writers?
Oh man.
I know it's a broad question, and I hate being asked
but I will
questions like that.
But I will say, when I first started playing bass, it was in the early 90s. And so I was listening to K-Rock at the time. And so my influences were those bands, the grunge bands, like Nirvana and bands like that, Smashing Pumpkins. So I would say my first songs were very influenced by those bands. And I remember bringing songs to my band. I had an all-girl band because I went to an all-girl Catholic school.
Okay.
And I remember bringing songs to them, and they were like, "Oh man, this is too dark. This is way too dark. We've got to pep it up a little bit." I'm like, "Okay, whatever."
Were you kind of a emo teenager?
I guess so. I was
Dead
grunge.
Kennedys t-shirt.
I wasn't wearing the shirts, but I definitely listened to Dead Kennedys, like Minor Threat.
I forgot about them.
Bad Brains and all that stuff, along with the grunge stuff that was going on the K-Rocks of the time.
Who's your favorite out of the grunge bands? I think mine was Soundgarden.
Yeah, well, Nirvana was my favorite.
Okay.
At the time, I would say Nirvana was my favorite, but like Siamese Dream, I would say was probably like
I've never even
Smashing
heard of
Pumpkins.
them. Smashing Pumpkins, of course.
Yeah, that's the album Siamese Dream.
Oh, okay. I thought that was band.
I would say that was like probably. Looking back now, could still listen to that record and I still love it.
Have you met them or worked with any of them?
I have met them. Yeah, I've met them. I haven't worked with them.
Was that like the first time you met them? Did 14-year-old come? I'm like, oh my gosh. Were you a little starstruck still?
Yeah, I mean,
or were you like comfortable and like you could engage with them as a peer?
It definitely brings me back. I went to Lollapalooza 94, I think it was, when they played, and just flashbacks to like, in the mosh pit and like crowd surfing and just like so all for it. Just all
mosh
in.
pit. I haven't even thought about a mosh pit, and I don't even know how long. I forgot about all that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they do the mosh pits anymore. I don't think mosh pits happen.
Yeah, I think they cracked down on that stuff.
Yeah, when they're hitting each other in the face when listening to music.
Yeah. So violent.
So was guitar before bass?
No, it was always bass first.
Okay.
But I did have my dad had an acoustic guitar around. So
okay. Are those the main two instruments? Do you play keys?
I play a little bit of keys.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a lot of tours playing key bass. So I've had to do that.
Is that how you got into keys? Was learning the parts on key bass?
I took some piano lessons when I was a little kid.
Okay.
And I didn't take to it too much, but I at least have a little bit of background. I wouldn't call myself a pianist at all by any means, but I can if I had to, I could get around.
Right. How has doing the amount of touring you've done shaped your playing? And how do you prevent, tour chops, where you're just on the road and you're playing the same show so regularly that facility or falls by the wayside?
I think it's just a matter of forcing yourself to practice other stuff. Because it's definitely easy to fall into that for sure.
Right.
But I do a lot of session work while I'm on the road, and because I have a remote setup.
Yeah, nice.
Like a portable setup. So also I write on the road too.
Okay.
So that all just kind of keeps me thinking outside of the
outside of the show. Yeah.
Or outside of the show. So I think it's also your priorities, I mean, I think it depends on where people are at. Sometimes playing enough people, sometimes it could be if it's a challenging show, or depends on where people are at with that. Everyone's their own,
right.
Determines what they need for themselves.
That's true. You were in a rehearsal yesterday. Who were you rehearsing with yesterday?
Oh yeah. We're rehearsing with Pink right now.
Are you going back out?
Yeah, we're doing a festival this weekend. We're doing Bottle Rock.
Bottle Rock? Where's that?
Napa.
Oh.
Napa.
That's cool. I like Napa.
Yeah.
Just how big is the festival? Is it multi-day or like just a Saturday?
I think it's a 3-day festival.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're playing the Sunday, so it'll be fun it'll be the first show with her back in over 2 years, and the first actual festival that I've played too. Big show. So
since pre-COVID.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I played shows, but not like an actual proper
big
festival or something like that.
Yeah. So. Now you've worked with her off and on. Are you in her band? Are you
in the live band?
Okay. Is that does she do a band thing instead of not just called the regular musicians that she hires, but she's got a band?
I mean, it's been mostly the same members for a long time. So I've been with her for 15 years. So whenever she does anything live, I'll be with her for that.
Is there new material? Is she pumping out anything new?
She had a couple of new things last year, but right now she's not doing any new stuff live. Not right now, but I believe she's working on a record. So
do you do the records?
No. Unfortunately not. Yeah.
Is she out here in LA?
She's Southern. She's SoCal.
Yeah. Okay.
Up in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's out of all the touring you've done? What are some like specific gigs or tours that's like, would be kind of equivalent of like a back page article in a magazine, like war stories from the road?
War stories?
Yeah, just like some gig went completely sideways or something really erratic happened or random or you've been working on the road for a while, so I'm sure that there's got to be some gems in there.
Yeah, I think I might have blocked any of those out. Any bad ones. The whole glass half full thing. I don't remember the bad stuff. I remember a lot of the good stuff. I don't really have any like crazy war stories.
Oh, that's good.
Per se. Although I'll probably remember like 5 when we get off the call. But it's like the like tell me a funny joke and you're like, I can't think of one.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
Yeah.
But then you hear one and you're like, I gotta remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You never do.
Write it down. Next time someone asks me for a funny joke.
Write it down. Down.
Your dad was a bass player. Now I learned of him when starting the Cat and Fiddle and did a little research then. You were very exposed to the bass and bass playing. I'm sure he was a major, if not the primary influence growing up. What bass players did he turn you on to during your formative bass player years?
He turned me on to he was a big fan of Jack Bruce.
Oh yeah.
He was friends with John Entwistle. He was friends with a lot of these guys. So
amazing.
I was lucky to be exposed to them just and as a person as well.
Sure.
Real life. So that was all really special stuff. I do remember specifically him turning me on to KOK.
Oh, okay.
Because he was,
I mean, back in that time, she was out here because you guys moved here, late 70s, mid 70s.
My parents moved here in the mid 70s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's like right around the time Motown Records moves to LA. Carol wasn't. I mean, I think that's a whole other topic. What Carol did for Motown, but she was doing the Wrecking Crew around that time.
Yeah,
all the studios were alive and happening. Was your dad a part of that scene? And did he take you to it? Were you exposed to session musicians? Okay.
He was not really a part of that scene. He was more a part of the rock and roll, the British rock and roll scene.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in a band with Rod Stewart. He was in a band with Ron Wood, the Rolling Stones. He knew all those guys. He was friends with the Who guys. So whenever any of those British guys were in town, they were hanging out at the Kent Fiddle. So that was cool. The scene he was in mostly. Although after living in LA for a long time and owning a pub, the local watering hole, of course, he became friends with a lot of other people too. Right.
Like whether it be in Laurel Canyon or on Sunset, like you're going to get a bunch of musician traffic to either location.
Yeah. Like, I remember him telling me like, oh yeah, Slash came into the pub last night. And people who were hanging out in Hollywood back then. So
like during, kind of I don't want to say heyday of Hollywood because there's always been different periods of heydays, but I don't know if there was a big heyday in the 90s. With the exception of whatever Johnny Depp was doing at the Viper Room. I don't know if that was a big, there wasn't like the scene that I remember I've heard of in the 80s with Whiskey A Go-Go or the 70s and the Doors and all the clubs that were actually open.
Yeah.
Back
the Sunset Strip scene.
Yeah. But that, I don't think much was happening by the 90s. I mean, you were around for it. What was the scene like in Hollywood in the 90s?
In the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was in high school in Hollywood in the 90s. So for me, it was going to places that allowed underage kids in. Right. So it was actually the Whiskey being one of those places.
Okay.
And I played one of my first gigs at the Whiskey.
Nice. What was the band? Do you remember the band?
Yeah, I was in a band called Entropy, which was that all-girl band from ENTROPY.
Okay.
And we actually played with a band called Cara's Flowers, who we were friends with, who later became Maroon 5.
Oh, wow.
So that was all friends with those guys back in the high school days.
That's cool.
High school land. So
did they go to the same high school?
So we were just a bunch
no, you went to an all-girls school.
No, they went to a different high school, but we were all just like bunch of LA kids that were going to shows and playing shows and having birthday parties. And so we were all around for it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Those so the Whiskey, any other kind of regular hotspots back in the day of that old Hollywood?
I mean, we were hanging out at the Roxy, same kind of thing. The Troubadour, we were going to shows at the Troubadour all the time. A lot of the same clubs that are still around today, some that aren't around anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, since we were musician kids, we were hanging out at shows a lot.
Mm-hmm. What during that time you're starting to play out with bands and stuff? Were you getting outside of your father being a bass player? Were you getting other education in music or the bass? Were you taking like local private lessons or a friend of your dad's? Something.
So after the all-girl high school, I was there for 2 years, and I decided I wanted to take the music thing seriously. So I ended up going to an arts high school, called LACSA, the LA County High School for the Arts, and I was in the music program there. So I was there for 2 years playing in the jazz band and getting more of a formal music education.
Okay. On electric bass, yeah. They didn't. Sometimes those schools are weird, like they force you to play upright or something. But they were cool. So there were a couple of electric players, me being one of them. And then we had a couple of upright players. So if we were playing like the big band stuff, the other guys would play those tunes. If we had a lot of Latin, our jazz band instructor he was a Latin jazz guy. So we were playing a lot of Latin jazz tunes.
And that's the stuff that I ended up doing because I played electric and I loved the groove stuff. So that's the stuff I was playing.
Right.
And I started playing upright in college. Actually, I didn't start playing upright until I was in the Middle Eastern Orchestra.
In the what orchestra?
At UCLA.
Okay. Do you still play?
Middle Eastern. I was playing Middle Eastern music.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I don't anymore. But that was my intro to upright because we had to play. We had to play instruments that didn't have any frets on them.
Yeah, right.
Because it's a lot of the microtones.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so that's how I ended up getting the upright. Doesn't have frets on it, so I ended up playing upright.
I don't ever think of the upright in Middle Eastern music.
Yeah, I think I was their first bass player. They didn't have any.
Really?
They didn't have any music in bass clef. It was all in treble.
Yeah.
And so I was, for a while, I was transcribing everything, but it was like all the pieces were like 6 pages long, and they were in like 9, 8, and just
that's normal to them.
Yeah, no, it's of course it's like a nature, and the way like the blues would be to us or something.
Right.
But so I just ended up learning how to read treble.
Okay.
It was just easier.
Yeah. I think it is easier. So what's next? Do you have another EP you're looking forward to after? I mean, what's next is this thing you're doing with Pink, but for your own stuff, what's on the horizon?
My own stuff, I am back into the writing mode.
Okay.
And collecting maybe what will be a full album. I don't know.
We'll see. I'm lobbying for yes. I think you got 2 EPs out that are similar in concept. Now, full album. Time
for a full album. Yeah. So that's actually what I would like to do next. I would like to do a full album. So
okay.
We'll see what the future brings.
Yeah.
But that's the idea.
Okay. Instrumentation wise, like vibe of the record, still kind of the same thing. Mixing 80s kind of new wave synth with, like the opening guitar of Dark Matter. When I was making notes on the record, I'm just like grunge.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely could tell what I was listening to in the early 90s. Like,
yeah. Yeah. No, it's like straight out of the Nirvana playbook, like the sound of it and everything.
Exactly. I know. But I actually because I usually play everything on my record. So, or most things. I was thinking about having people come in and doing it totally differently and just recording it live with other people playing instruments that they're actually, having a guitar player actually come in and play the guitar, and an actual keyboard player come in and play keys, and just to get other people's just to get some outside input.
Right.
Know?
I think that's necessary.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a lot of times it's just me on my own in my studio. So I think it would be nice to try it differently this time.
Sure. Yeah. The way I think about that stuff is they know their instrument. Like, let's say a guitar guy is going to know all the nerd stuff about a guitar that I know about the bass.
Yeah.
So
they can bring
something
different.
Yeah. Like I don't know the nerd stuff, but he's just going to do it and I'm going to like it.
Exactly.
So I'll let him be the specialist on it. That seems to be easier than me trying to like conceive of it all. Cause I fall into that thing a lot where I try to envision it all before I start, and it's daunting and too much.
Yeah. I'm definitely into the idea of delegating, and I even want someone else to play bass.
Really?
Yeah.
And you would just
totally
be the singer?
Into that idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. That's fascinating. Who would you choose as a bass player? Now, when I was doing my record, I was making jokes about that I was going to sub out, my own record to somebody else. It's an instrumental record, so kind of funny. Nobody comes to mind who you would.
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Yeah,
I'd have to think about it. Yeah, I don't know what the songs sound like yet, so I think that as the songs take shape, maybe I'll have more of an idea.
That'll dictate. Yeah, the personnel. Cool. Looking forward to hearing it. Let me know. Let me know when it comes out.
Thank you.
I want to hear the full length record.
Me too. About time.
Yeah. Eva, thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. That was my talk with Eva Gardner. That chat went some fun places. After she talked about the meaning behind her EP, Dark Matter, like behind the title, I was thinking about that for a while. It's a really, really fascinating thesis, for the lack of a better musical term. I'm gonna use the word thesis. Interesting thesis for the record. Again, do yourself a solid. Check out the EP and follow Eva on Instagram at Eva Gardner. I will have links up to all that at thebasshed.com/podcast/Eva Gardner. Folks, wherever you are listening to the Basshed podcast, click on the subscribe button. I have some episodes in the tank that'll be coming your way shortly that are really, really fun. Next week is my chat with Ryan Gullen. 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 Me and the last names never fails. Ryan Gullen is the bassist for the band The Sheepdogs, which is a Canadian band that sounds more Americana than Americans do. We talk about that, actually. The band is really, really dope. Their new album, Out of Sight, just dropped, so we'll be talking about that, and in typical Ryro style, a bunch of other tangents that I go on. That's what that is. Do yourself a solid. Do me a solid. Do the world a solid. Hit the subscribe button and stay tuned. That's all I got. That's all I got for this one. I will catch you on the next one in a minute.